The Silent Watchers. Dr. Eliana Frost sat in the dimly lit control room of the Deep Space Observation Facility, her eyes glued to the flickering screens that surrounded her. The hum of machinery was a constant reminder of the isolation she felt in her pursuit of knowledge. For 2 decades, she had dedicated herself to monitoring deep space signals, hoping for contact with extraterrestrial life. Yet, night after night, all she received was silence. As she sipped her lukewarm coffee, Eliana reflected on the dwindling resources allocated to her project. Funding had been cut repeatedly over the years, many now considered it a futile endeavor. The world had grown weary of waiting for a sign from the stars, but Eliana remained steadfast in her belief that they were not alone. Another empty night, came a voice from behind her. It was Lieutenant Marco Reyes, her assistant and one of the few who shared her passion for the cosmos. He approached with 2 steaming cups of coffee, offering one to her with a knowing smile. "Just the usual," Eliana replied, accepting the cup gratefully. "But I've been analyzing some recent data that's troubling me." Marco leaned against the console, intrigued. "What did you find?" Eliana pulled up several charts on the main screen, pointing to a specific area marked by an unusual absence of signals. "Look at this sector," she said, her brow furrowing with concern. "It's completely silent." Marco studied the data closely. "That's strange. Even empty space has background noise, radiation and other signals." "Exactly," Eliana replied, excitement creeping into her voice. "This isn't just an anomaly, it's like a black hole in our data." "Could it be a malfunction?" Marco suggested hesitantly. "I thought so too," Eliana admitted, shaking her head. "But we've checked with multiple arrays across different locations. They all show the same thing." She gestured at another screen displaying maps dotted with similar silent zones. Marco's eyes widened as he began connecting dots in his mind. "These aren't random," he said slowly, tracing lines between the silent zones with his finger. "They're positioned like checkpoints surrounding Earth." A chill ran down Eliana's spine as she considered his implication. "Are you suggesting we're being contained?" The next 12 hours passed in a blur of activity as Eliana and Marco presented their findings to senior staff members at the facility. An emergency meeting was convened with global scientific leaders who listened intently as they laid out their evidence. "The data doesn't lie," Eliana explained passionately during the meeting. "These silent zones are artificial constructs designed to block our signals from reaching deeper space." As murmurs filled the room, an unsettling realization began to dawn on everyone present: Earth was not alone in the galaxy, it was isolated by an unseen force. Days turned into weeks as scientists worldwide redirected their telescopes and sensors to study these silent zones further. Each new piece of data confirmed their worst fears: Earth was surrounded by an artificial barrier so well hidden that humanity had never noticed it before. Eliana often found herself gazing out at the night sky from her office window, which now seemed more like bars in a cosmic prison than twinkling stars above them. Marco joined her one evening, his expression mirroring her own unease. "What do we do now?" he asked quietly. Eliana turned to him with renewed determination in her eyes. "Now we figure out why an advanced civilization would go to such lengths to keep us in the dark." With this new resolve driving them forward, they began assembling teams to probe deeper into their cosmic confinement and find answers that could change everything for humanity. Weeks later, their lab had transformed into a hub of intense activity as they prepared for their first unmanned probe mission into one of the silent zones, a vessel named Pioneer. It was designed to breach the barrier and gather data on whatever lay beyond it. "Are we ready?" Marco asked nervously as they stood before the control panel on launch day. Eliana nodded firmly, though anxiety gnawed at her insides. "We have no choice but to proceed." As Pioneer launched into space, they held their breath collectively in anticipation of what it might uncover beyond their prison walls. Hours passed agonizingly slow until finally, an alert blared across their screens. There's something. Marco shouted excitedly as data flooded in from Pioneer. But soon after came another alert: signal lost. What happened? Eliana demanded as panic set in. We need to analyze this data, Marco urged as they combed through corrupted fragments that came through just before contact was lost. Suddenly, an image flickered on one screen, a glimpse of something vast and alien beyond comprehension, before it vanished into static once more. Eliana felt hope mingling with dread. They were not just being watched, they were being contained for reasons yet unknown. As they worked tirelessly to piece together what little information they had gleaned from Pioneer, one thing became clear: humanity's fate rested on unraveling this mystery before it was too late. In those quiet moments between frantic activity and uncertainty, Eliana realized that perhaps humanity's greatest strength lay not in its technological advancements but in its relentless curiosity and determination to reach for what lay beyond, even when faced with silence from the stars above. The Awakening of the Guardians. Captain Ryland Voss stood at the helm of the command center, his eyes scanning the vast array of screens that displayed real-time data from across the globe. The atmosphere was electric, charged with a sense of urgency that had not been felt in decades. For years, he had trained for this moment, but nothing could have prepared him for the gravity of the situation they faced. Earth was on the brink of annihilation, and he was tasked with leading humanity's defense against an enemy they barely understood. Status report. Ryland barked, his voice cutting through the low hum of conversation. Lieutenant Ava Sinclair, his trusted second-in-command, stepped forward, her expression serious. We've confirmed the containment barrier is weakening. The void swarm is advancing faster than anticipated. We estimate less than 48 hours until it collapses completely. Ryland clenched his jaw, feeling a surge of adrenaline. What about our forces? Are they ready? Most units are mobilized and awaiting orders, Ava replied, her fingers flying over her tablet as she relayed information. However, we still lack a comprehensive strategy to counteract their attacks. Ryland nodded, acknowledging the challenge ahead. The Void Swarm had already decimated several advanced civilizations, and now they were coming for Earth. He had spent countless hours studying military tactics and strategies, but this was unlike anything he had encountered before. They were facing an enemy that absorbed energy and technology as if it were mere food. Gather all available commanders in the war room, Ryland ordered. We need to devise a plan that utilizes our strengths against their weaknesses. As the room emptied and filled with military leaders from various branches, Ryland took a moment to gather his thoughts. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily on him. He knew that every decision could mean life or death for millions. Once everyone was assembled, Ryland began the briefing. Thank you for coming on such short notice. We're facing an unprecedented threat. The Void Swarm is approaching our planet, and we must act decisively. He gestured toward a large screen displaying a map of the galaxy with red markers indicating fallen civilizations. These are our allies who have already fallen to this enemy. We cannot afford to become another statistic. General Marcus Hale, a seasoned veteran with graying hair and sharp eyes, spoke up. Captain Voss, we need to focus on developing a multi-pronged approach. Conventional strategies won't work against an enemy that absorbs our technology. I agree, Ava interjected. We need to think outside the box, use tactics that are unconventional and unpredictable. Ryland nodded in agreement. Exactly. Our greatest asset is our unpredictability as a species. While they've advanced in a linear fashion, we've developed in diverse directions. He paused for effect before continuing. We'll utilize kinetic weapons alongside our advanced technology. We'll create confusion among their ranks by launching simultaneous attacks from multiple fronts. The room buzzed with murmurs of approval as Ryland outlined his plan further. Lieutenant Sinclair will coordinate ground operations while I take command of our space fleet, Ryland declared confidently. We'll deploy drones equipped with old-fashioned munitions, bullets and explosives that can bypass their energy shields. General Hale raised an eyebrow skeptically. You really think primitive weaponry will have an impact? Rylan met his gaze steadily. It's not about whether it's primitive or advanced, it's about being effective against their defenses. They may have forgotten how to fight dirty, how to expect the unexpected. The meeting continued late into the night as strategies were honed and roles assigned. Each commander left with a renewed sense of purpose. They were no longer just defending Earth, they were fighting for survival. As dawn broke over the command center, Rylan stood at the window gazing out at the horizon where Earth met the sky. He felt a mix of hope and dread. Humanity had been deemed unworthy by those who monitored them from afar, but now they had a chance to prove their resilience. "Captain," Ava said softly as she joined him at the window. "Do you really believe we can win?" Rylan turned to her with determination in his eyes. "We don't have a choice but to win." With their plans set in motion, Rylan felt a surge of adrenaline course through him as he prepared for what lay ahead. The following days were filled with frantic preparations as Earth's military forces mobilized under Rylan's command. Ships were outfitted with makeshift weaponry while ground troops trained relentlessly for combat scenarios they had never imagined facing. As they worked tirelessly around the clock, news reports streamed in from various corners of the globe detailing increasing panic among civilians and governments alike. "We need to reassure people," Ava urged during one strategy session as she reviewed public sentiment data on her tablet. Rylan nodded thoughtfully. "Let's organize briefings to inform citizens about what's happening without causing mass hysteria." They crafted messages emphasizing unity and resilience, reminders that humanity had faced insurmountable odds before and emerged stronger each time. But even as they prepared for battle, uncertainty loomed like a shadow over them all. On the eve of their planned offensive against the Void Swarm, Rylan gathered his commanders once more in the war room for final briefings. "Tomorrow marks a turning point for humanity," he began solemnly as he scanned their faces filled with determination but also trepidation. "We will launch simultaneous attacks at dawn from both ground and space," he outlined clearly while pointing at various locations on a holographic map projected above them. "Remember, our goal is not just defense but offense. We must disrupt their advance before they reach our home." As they finalized their strategies and contingencies, Rylan felt a sense of camaraderie building among them, a shared understanding that they were all fighting for something greater than themselves. When dawn broke over Earth's horizon, it signaled not just another day but also humanity's last stand against an overwhelming force threatening their very existence. Rylan stood on the bridge of Vanguard, one of Earth's newly commissioned warships designed specifically for this conflict. The crew moved swiftly around him as preparations reached their final stages. Tension crackled in the air like static electricity. "Status report," he called out. "All systems operational." Ava replied from her station nearby, her fingers dancing across controls as she monitored incoming data streams. "Launch sequence initiated," came another voice from engineering. With each passing second, Rylan felt time slipping away. The moment they had trained for was finally upon them. "Prepare for launch," he commanded firmly as anticipation surged within him. As Vanguard broke through Earth's atmosphere alongside other ships readying themselves for battle against an enemy unlike any other seen before, Rylan couldn't shake off an overwhelming sense of purpose. It was time to show not just themselves but also those watching from beyond that humanity was far from being contained. They were ready to rise as guardians of their own fate. The Void Swarm would soon learn that humanity's unpredictability was not just its greatest flaw but also its most potent weapon, and together they would fight back against those who sought to keep them imprisoned among stars forever silent. Voices from beyond. The atmosphere in the command center was thick with anticipation as Commander Emma Reed prepared for the most critical mission humanity had ever faced. The screens around her flickered with data, each one displaying vital information about the Void Swarm and their impending assault on Earth. Despite the weight of responsibility on her shoulders, Emma felt a surge of determination. They were no longer just fighting for survival, they were fighting to reclaim their place in the galaxy. Status report. Emma called out, her voice steady as she addressed her crew. Barrier disruption systems are fully operational, replied Lieutenant Marco Reyes, his fingers dancing over the controls. We're ready to breach the containment field as soon as it collapses. Good, Emma replied, glancing at the countdown timer ticking ominously down to 0. And our fleet? Fleet is in position, awaiting your command, Marco confirmed. All ships are armed and ready for engagement. Emma nodded, feeling a mixture of pride and anxiety swell within her. They were about to confront an enemy that had decimated civilizations far more advanced than theirs. But they had something those civilizations lacked, a chaotic unpredictability that could turn the tide of battle. As she reviewed the tactical maps displayed on the holographic screens, a sense of urgency washed over her. We need to be prepared for anything. The Void Swarm has shown they can adapt quickly, we must stay one step ahead. Just then, Dr. James Walker entered the command center, his expression grave but focused. Commander Reed, he said, his voice low. We've received a new transmission from one of the surviving civilizations. Emma's heart raced as she gestured for him to continue. What did they say? It's a warning, Walker replied, pulling up the holographic image of an alien being, a crystalline entity with swirling colors that seemed to pulse with emotion. The message played through the speakers. People of Earth, heed our words. The Void Swarm consumes all that it encounters, organic and technological alike. We have witnessed entire worlds fall before them. Their methods are unlike anything you have faced, they do not fight, they devour. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the gravity of the message. They've lost everything, Emma murmured, her heart heavy with empathy for those who had suffered at the hands of this relentless foe. Walker continued, they implore us to fight back with everything we have, but they also warn us, do not underestimate their ability to adapt. Emma straightened her posture, determination flooding her veins once more. We won't be caught off guard again. We'll use every advantage we have, our unpredictability will be our greatest weapon. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Emma turned back to her crew, who were now looking at her expectantly. Let's review our strategy one last time, she said firmly. We'll deploy our fleet in a staggered formation to confuse their targeting systems while we launch kinetic weapons from multiple angles. As she spoke, she felt a sense of camaraderie building among her team, they were united by a common goal and a shared understanding of what was at stake. Hours passed as they prepared for battle. The tension in the command center was palpable, every second felt like an eternity as they awaited the moment when the containment barrier would finally collapse. General Thomas is on standby, Marco announced suddenly. He's ready to give us the signal once we confirm that the barrier is down. Emma nodded, her mind racing with possibilities and contingencies. They had trained for this moment countless times, but nothing could truly prepare them for what lay ahead. Finally, as the countdown reached its final seconds, alarms blared throughout the facility. Barrier integrity failing, came a voice over the intercom. Emma's heart raced as she leaned closer to her screen. Prepare for breach, she commanded. The tension in the room reached a fever pitch as everyone held their breath, waiting for that moment when they would be free from their cosmic prison. With a deafening roar, the containment barrier shattered like glass, an explosion of energy rippled through space as it collapsed under pressure from both sides. Now! All ships launch! Emma shouted as she sprang into action. As Breakthrough surged forward into open space alongside its fleet, Emma felt a rush of exhilaration mixed with fear. They were no longer contained, they were free to confront their enemies head-on. Deploy kinetic weapons, she ordered, watching as missiles and projectiles streaked toward the Void Swarm's advancing fleet. The first explosions lit up space like fireworks against a dark canvas, a chaotic dance of destruction that filled Emma with hope and dread alike. But even as their weapons struck true against some of the Void Swarm's ships, she could see that many others absorbed their attacks effortlessly, dark tendrils reaching out to consume everything in their path. "They're adapting," Marco shouted from his station as he monitored incoming data streams. "Reinforce our targeting systems," Emma replied urgently. "We need to adjust our tactics on the fly." As chaos erupted around them, Emma found herself relying on instincts honed through years of training and experience. She directed her crew with precision, weaving through enemy fire while launching countermeasures that exploited weaknesses in their foes' defenses. In the midst of battle chaos, another transmission came through. The crystalline alien they had seen earlier appeared once more on their screens. "People of Earth, you must understand. The Void Swarm is not merely an enemy, it is a force of nature. It consumes everything without discrimination. You must fight differently." Emma felt frustration boiling within her. How could they possibly fight differently when faced with such overwhelming odds? "What do you mean?" she shouted at the screen. "Their strength lies in unity," the alien continued urgently. "They have no individual thought, only collective purpose. You must exploit your diversity." Emma's mind raced as she processed this information. Perhaps there was truth in what they said. Humanity's greatest strength lay not just in technology but also in its chaotic nature and ability to think independently. "We need to break their formation," Emma exclaimed suddenly. "If we can disrupt their collective consciousness." She turned back to her crew with renewed determination. "We'll split our forces into smaller units, each one will act independently and unpredictably." Marco nodded vigorously. "I'll relay those orders immediately." As breakthrough maneuvered through enemy lines, Emma watched as smaller squadrons broke away from their main fleet, each ship darting off in different directions like fireflies scattering into darkness. Suddenly, an explosion rocked breakthrough, sending alarms blaring through the command center. "Damage report," Emma shouted over the chaos. "We've lost power to aft thrusters." Marco replied urgently while trying to stabilize their trajectory. "Divert auxiliary power. We can't afford to lose control now." With every passing moment, it became clearer that this battle would not be won easily. They were up against an enemy that had consumed civilizations far more advanced than theirs, but humanity was not without its own strengths. As smaller units engaged in hit-and-run tactics against Void Swarm ships, Emma felt hope blossoming within her once more. Perhaps this unpredictable approach would give them an edge after all. Suddenly, another communication came through. The crystalline alien appeared once more on screen, but this time with urgency etched across its features. "You are doing well. But you must remember, do not fight alone. Your strength lies in unity among your kind." Emma frowned at this reminder. While humanity was diverse in thought and action, now was not the time for division, it was time for collaboration. "We need to coordinate our attacks," she shouted into her comm system. "Everyone listen up. We're going to synchronize our movements across all units." As orders flew through channels and ships began coordinating strikes against individual Void Swarm vessels rather than attacking en masse, Emma felt a surge of adrenaline course through her veins. It was working. The tide began to turn as coordinated attacks overwhelmed several Void Swarm ships. Explosions lit up space like stars being born anew amid darkness, a testament to humanity's resilience and ingenuity against impossible odds. But even amidst victory celebrations among crews aboard various ships came another alert: Void Swarm reinforcements detected. Emma's heart sank momentarily before steeling herself once more. This battle was far from over. "We need every available ship back here now," she commanded urgently as new threats loomed on sensors, more dark shapes emerging from beyond known space like shadows creeping ever closer toward Earth itself. As chaos reigned around them once more amidst explosions and cries echoing through comm systems alike, Emma realized that even if victory seemed distant now, it was still possible if humanity could embrace its own unique strengths while standing united against whatever lay ahead. The gathering storm. The command center buzzed with activity as Commander Emma Reed stood at the helm of the Breakthrough, Earth's first true space warship. The vessel was a testament to humanity's resilience and ingenuity, designed not for beauty but for survival. Its hull was thick with armor, and its surface bristled with an array of weapons, rail guns, missile launchers, and experimental devices that had been hastily developed in response to the Void Swarm's impending assault. "Final checks complete," Emma announced, her voice steady despite the anxiety swirling within her. She had been thrust into this leadership role during a time of crisis, and the weight of responsibility rested heavily on her shoulders. "All weapon systems are green." "Good," Captain Rylan Voss replied from his station nearby, surrounded by screens displaying complex calculations and tactical maps. "The barrier disruptors are ready. We've modified their containment technology against them, it should work." "Should?" General Thomas interjected from the command chair, a hint of skepticism in his tone. "It will work," Rylan corrected himself, projecting more confidence than he felt. They had spent every moment since receiving the first warning preparing for this confrontation, but doubt lingered at the edges of their minds. Emma glanced around the bridge at her crew, each face reflected determination mixed with fear. They were all aware that they stood on the brink of a battle that could determine the fate of humanity. "All stations report ready," Emma announced, her voice rising above the hum of machinery. "We have 3 hours before the swarm reaches our position." A palpable tension filled the air as they awaited the moment and the containment barrier would finally collapse, allowing the Void Swarm to surge forward. Emma felt her heart race as she thought about what lay ahead. They were not just fighting for survival but for their very existence as a species. As they prepared for battle, Emma recalled the warning received from the crystalline alien, a plea for help that underscored their urgency. The Void Swarm was unlike any enemy they had faced before. It consumed everything in its path, rendering advanced technology useless against its relentless advance. "General," Emma said, breaking through her thoughts. "We need to establish a communication link with all Allied forces. They must be prepared to engage as soon as we breach the barrier." "Already on it," General Thomas replied, his fingers flying over his console. "We'll coordinate our efforts across all fronts." Emma nodded, feeling a sense of unity among Earth's military forces. They had spent decades preparing for alien invasions, and now those preparations would be put to the ultimate test. As time ticked down, Emma took a moment to reflect on their journey thus far. Just months ago, humanity had been blissfully unaware of their cosmic confinement, isolated and judged by civilizations that deemed them unworthy. Now they stood united against a common enemy, ready to confront their fate. Commander Reed, Marco Reyes, called from his station, pulling her from her thoughts. "We're receiving real-time updates from our reconnaissance units. The Void Swarm is advancing faster than anticipated." Emma's heart sank as she processed this information. "How long until they reach us?" "At this rate?" "Less than 2 hours," Marco replied grimly. "Prepare all systems for immediate engagement," Emma commanded, her voice firm. "We need to be ready for anything." With each passing minute, tension mounted aboard Breakthrough. Crew members moved with purpose as they executed their final preparations, loading munitions, calibrating targeting systems, and running diagnostics on every weapon aboard. "Commander," Rylan said suddenly, his eyes fixed on a screen displaying data from their sensors. "We've detected an anomaly in their formation." Emma approached his station and studied the screen closely. "What are we looking at?" "It appears they're consolidating their forces," Rylan explained. "They're adapting to our tactics, forming clusters that could overwhelm us if we're not careful." Emma felt a surge of urgency wash over her. "We need to disrupt their formation before they can launch an all-out assault." "Agreed," Rylan replied decisively. "We'll send small strike teams to target their flanks while we hold our position here." As they finalized their strategy, Emma couldn't shake off a feeling of foreboding. She knew that even with their preparations and tactics, there was no guarantee of victory against an enemy that had already consumed entire civilizations. "General Thomas," she said suddenly, turning toward him with resolve in her eyes. "If we're going to succeed in this fight, we need to embrace our unpredictability as a species." "What do you mean?" he asked curiously. "We've always been diverse in our approaches. While other civilizations have followed rigid paths of development, we've combined old methods with new technologies." Emma paused for emphasis before continuing. "It's time we use that unpredictability to our advantage." General Thomas nodded thoughtfully. "I see what you're getting at. We can't fight them like everyone else has tried and failed." Emma felt a rush of determination as she outlined her plan further. "We'll deploy unconventional tactics, hit-and-run assaults using kinetic weapons alongside our advanced technology to keep them guessing." As they prepared to engage with the Void Swarm, Emma felt a sense of camaraderie among her crew that transcended fear. They were united by purpose and determination. "Stand by for engagement," she called out as alarms blared throughout breakthrough signaling imminent contact with the enemy. The ship shuddered slightly as it entered combat mode. Screens lit up with tactical information while crew members took their positions at various stations. "Barrier integrity is failing," Marco shouted suddenly as data flooded in from sensors monitoring the containment fields surrounding Earth. Emma's heart raced as she realized what this meant. The moment they had been waiting for was finally here. "Prepare for breach," she commanded urgently. With one final surge of energy, the containment barrier collapsed under pressure from both sides. A deafening roar echoed through space as Breakthrough surged forward into open combat against the Void Swarm. "Launch kinetic weapons," Emma ordered as missiles streaked towards enemy ships like shooting stars cutting through darkness. Explosions erupted around them, the chaotic dance of destruction igniting hope within Emma's heart even amidst uncertainty about what lay ahead. As Breakthrough maneuvered through enemy fire while launching countermeasures designed to exploit weaknesses in Void Swarm defenses, the tide began to turn ever so slightly in humanity's favor. But even amid small victories came another alert: Void Swarm reinforcements detected. Emma's stomach dropped momentarily before steeling herself once more. This battle was far from over. "We need every available ship back here now," she commanded urgently as new threats loomed on sensors, more dark shapes emerging from beyond known space like shadows creeping ever closer toward Earth itself. As chaos reigned around them once more amidst explosions and cries echoing through comm systems alike, Emma realized that even if victory seemed distant now, it was still possible if humanity could embrace its own unique strengths while standing united against whatever lay ahead. With each passing moment bringing them closer to confrontation, the stakes grew higher than ever before. The final stand. The atmosphere on the Breakthrough was electric as Commander Emma Reed prepared her crew for the battle of their lives. The ship, a hulking mass of metal and technology, stood ready to confront the Void Swarm that threatened to annihilate everything humanity had built. With every passing moment, the stakes grew higher, and the urgency of their mission weighed heavily on everyone aboard. "Status report," Emma called out, her voice cutting through the tension in the command center. "Barrier integrity is weakening," Lieutenant Marco Reyes replied, his fingers flying over his console. "We estimate less than 24 hours until it completely collapses under the swarm's advance." Emma felt a chill run down her spine at the thought of what lay beyond that barrier, an enemy that had already consumed civilizations far more advanced than theirs. She turned to Dr. James Walker, who was reviewing data on his screen. "What do we know about their current position?" Walker looked up, his expression grave. "They're consolidating their forces just outside our containment zone. We've intercepted communications indicating they plan to launch a full-scale assault once the barrier falls." "Then we need to be ready," Emma replied firmly. "Prepare all systems for immediate engagement. We can't let them breach our defenses." As they finalized their preparations, Emma reflected on how far they had come since discovering their cosmic prison. Just months ago, they had been isolated and judged by advanced civilizations that deemed them unworthy. Now, they stood united against a common enemy, ready to reclaim their place in the galaxy. "Commander," Marco said suddenly, interrupting her thoughts. "We've received a message from General Thomas." Emma turned her attention to the screen as General Thomas's stern face appeared. "Commander Reed, we need to coordinate with all Allied forces immediately. This is not just about Earth, it's about survival for every civilization that has faced the Void Swarm." "I understand, General," Emma replied, her heart racing at the thought of uniting humanity's military might with those of other species who had survived this threat. "We'll establish communication links with all available fleets." "Good," Thomas said with a nod. "We'll need every ship and every soldier if we're going to stand a chance against this enemy." As preparations continued aboard Breakthrough, Emma felt a surge of determination within her crew. They were no longer just individuals, they were part of something larger, a collective force fighting for survival. "Final checks complete," Marco announced as he ran through the last of their system's diagnostics. "Excellent," Emma replied, feeling a sense of pride in her team's hard work and dedication. "Let's make sure everyone knows their roles for tomorrow's engagement." The crew gathered around as Emma outlined their strategy one last time. "We'll deploy in 2 waves. The first wave will engage directly with the Void Swarm while our second wave provides support from behind. Remember, we can't fight them like other civilizations have tried, we need to be unpredictable." As night fell over Earth, Emma found herself staring out into space from the observation deck of Breakthrough. The stars twinkled above like distant memories, silent witnesses to humanity's struggle against an enemy that sought to consume them whole. "Are you ready for this?" Rylan asked quietly as he joined her at the window. Emma turned to him, meeting his gaze with determination. "I have to be. We all do. We've trained for this moment," Rylan said softly, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Whatever happens out there tomorrow, we fight together." With those words echoing in her mind, Emma felt a renewed sense of purpose wash over her. They were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for their right to exist in a universe that had long deemed them unworthy. The next morning dawned with an eerie stillness as Breakthrough prepared for battle. Crew members moved with purpose as they executed final checks and loaded munitions onto their ship. "Stand by for launch," Emma commanded as alarms blared throughout the command center signaling imminent contact with the enemy. As Breakthrough surged forward into open space alongside Allied fleets from various civilizations, each ship bristling with weaponry, Emma felt adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Launch kinetic weapons," she shouted as missiles streaked toward Void Swarm vessels like shooting stars cutting through darkness. Explosions erupted around them, the chaotic dance of destruction igniting hope within Emma's heart even amidst uncertainty about what lay ahead. As they engaged in battle against the Void Swarm, Emma's instincts kicked in, she directed her crew with precision while launching countermeasures designed to exploit weaknesses in enemy defenses. But even amid small victories came another alert: Void Swarm reinforcements detected. Emma's stomach dropped momentarily before steeling herself once more. This battle was far from over. "We need every available ship back here now," she commanded urgently as new threats loomed on sensors, more dark shapes emerging from beyond known space like shadows creeping ever closer toward Earth itself. In the midst of chaos and destruction, another transmission came through. The crystalline alien they had seen earlier appeared once more on their screens. "People of Earth, you must understand. The Void Swarm is not merely an enemy, it is a force of nature. It consumes everything without discrimination. You must fight differently." Emma felt frustration boiling within her. How could they possibly fight differently when faced with such overwhelming odds? "What do you mean?" she shouted at the screen. "Their strength lies in unity," the alien continued urgently. "They have no individual thought, only collective purpose. You must exploit your diversity." Emma's mind raced as she processed this information, perhaps there was truth in what they said. Humanity's greatest strength lay not just in technology but also in its chaotic nature and ability to think independently. We need to break their formation. Emma exclaimed suddenly. If we can disrupt their collective consciousness. She turned back to her crew with renewed determination. We'll split our forces into smaller units, each one will act independently and unpredictably. As orders flew through channels and ships began coordinating strikes against individual Void Swarm vessels rather than attacking en masse, Emma felt a surge of adrenaline course through her veins. It was working. The tide began to turn as coordinated attacks overwhelmed several Void Swarm ships. Explosions lit up space like stars being born anew amid darkness, a testament to humanity's resilience and ingenuity against impossible odds. But even amidst victory celebrations among crews aboard various ships came another alert: Void Swarm reinforcements detected. Emma's heart sank at this news. They could not afford complacency now. We need every available ship back here now, she commanded urgently once more as new threats loomed on sensors, more dark shapes emerging from beyond known space like shadows creeping ever closer toward Earth itself. As chaos reigned around them once more amidst explosions and cries echoing through comm systems alike, Emma realized that even if victory seemed distant now, it was still possible if humanity could embrace its own unique strengths while standing united against whatever lay ahead.